Let's be serious. You ready? Good evening. Proper getting to the day, I should say, whenever you get around to it. We're going to read something historical, partially biblical, but totally relevant to what we're about to be undergoing the next however long it takes. And as long as anything has actually gone down in this country, um, the other day I was doing some work for my upcoming little project, The Lion of Judah, and I'm probably 20% done with that. Got some recording done, I've got some pictures done, I've got more recording and more pictures to do, and I have to put it together a certain way. So that's going to take even more time to figure out. It'll be done when it gets done. But as I was reading it, I was I in Isaiah? I believe I was in Isaiah, chapter 36, though. I'm not going to go there and read it to you, but there was a difference made, uh, and it was when the is it the Assyrians come upon? I'm pretty sure it's the Assyrians. Sennacherib, king of the Assyrians, comes upon Ezekiah, or who would be Hezekiah, king of Judah, and it pretty much there's a scribe and there's a recorder. Now, the reason why I go into this is to explain where we're getting the history of the municipal clerk and why they're so important to our current, past, present struggle, future struggle, excuse me. Uh, 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 what happens is this: early beginnings. The municipal clerk is the oldest of public servants in local government, along with the tax collector. The profession traces back before biblical times. For example, the modern translation of town clerk is the modern Hebrew translation of town clerk is Maskir Hayir, which literally translated means city or town reminder. The early keepers of archives were often called remembrancers, and before writing came into use, their memory served as the public record. Now, it does serve us to say that they're using modern Hebrew translation and not the old Hebrew translation because it would probably be different. Um, but the reason why we're going to go with this is to understand that an office that is fulfilled every day, whether you realize it or not, is major. Ancient Greece had a city secretary who read official documents publicly. At the beginning of a meeting, one of his first duties was to decree a curse upon anyone who should seek to deceive the people. St. Paul, one moment, St. Paul and his followers, during his missionary work in Persia, now Western Turkey, owed their safety to the action of a town clerk, as related in Acts 19:21 through 41. Written in AD 58, the artisans of Ephesus, who made the idols of the time, feared the effect of Paul's missionary work on their trade. That's not exactly what happened, but we're not going to go into that. They incited a mob to seize two of Paul's followers. The town clerk, however, spoke out against this action and insisted that charges laid against these men be settled in the proper manner and before the proper authorities. There was no justification for the riotous conduct. With that, he dispersed the crowd. That's not what took place. Reportedly, the Regency line of France descends from the office of the clerk, according to James Bryce of this book, The Holy Roman Empire. This is where I really want you guys to listen to. There is a direct link between the position of the mayor of the palace, a clerical post created by the Merovingian kings of France, that's speaking of Charlemagne and all of them, and all the subsequent queens of France. In the 8th century, the Frankish kings of France depended on the mayor of the palace to perform all the manner of clerical and administrative tasks for the king, including collecting taxes and fees, publishing documents, keeping state records, and assisting in the enforcement of the king's justice. In 751, the Merovingian king Childeric was deposed, and his assistant Pippin, mayor of the palace, became not only the monarch of France, but simultaneously created a patrician of Rome by Pope Gregory III. Pippin was in turn the father of the great Charlemagne, the first Holy Roman Emperor and founder of the Carolingian dynasty of Europe on high, which which in successive generations produced the kings of France as well as the emperors of Germany and Austria. Hope you guys heard all that. That's an earful, that's a tongueful to get out. In short, what I've been trying to say to you guys about the Franks and their dependence upon black people goes back to the ancient times. They even claim to come. You hear how they came from the line of the clerk, but really they don't. They just come from people who are imposters, and these imposters totally drove the understanding into the ground. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all that, but the way that they act and do things is uh, is a demonstration of all this. Development in England. The title clerk, as we know it, is developed from the Latin clericus, developed during the Middle Ages when scholarship and writing was limited to clergy. Clerk came to mean a scholar, especially one who could read, write, and thus serve notary, secretary, accountant, and recorder. I'm just going to keep it pushing. One second. In ancient England, the township surrounded by its hedge or tun and the borough, an outpost fortified with a wall, developed a strong system of democratic local government. And one of the first officials these freedmen elected was the clerk. Mm. That's where the last name Clark comes from. Clarke. Just want y'all to get it. I've already read this stuff, but I need to put that out there. The beginning of the city clerk in England can be traced back to 1272 AD in the history of the corporations of London. The remembrancer was called upon to remind the councillors, members of the council, what had transpired at the previous meeting, since the meeting of the early councils were not recorded in written minutes. See? So pretty much whatever I say goes. Do you see how much power they have? Not much really hasn't changed. We're going to keep it pushing. In 1354, Mayor of Nottingham appointed the clerk and provided his remuneration. In 1439, Sikkim, Simkin Birches was awarded the office of town clerk in another community for the rest of his life. In 1477, Thomas Carton, a town clerk, was the first English printer and served as the diplomat for the king. In 1485, Nicholas Lancaster, the clerk, became mayor of York. In the 1500s in England, there was not only the town clerk, but also the clerk comptroller, the king's honorable household. In 1603, there was a clerk general of the army. Indeed, King Henry VIII had a clerk of the spicery, and King Charles had his clerk of the robes. Perhaps the strongest statement of unique position occupied by the municipal clerk is by an English court in the Middle Ages ruling in the case. Earl Hobbs ex parte Riley in another concerning this case. Chief Justice Lord Caldecott observed, the town of the office of town clerk is an important part of the machinery of local government. He may be said to stand between the local council and the ratepayers. He is there to assist by his advice and action the conduct of public affairs in the borough, and if there is a disposition on the part of the council, still more on the part of any member of the council to ride roughshod over his opinions. Excuse me. Do you get what I'm saying? If there is a disposition on the part of the council, still more than any part of the council, to ride roughshod over his opinions, the question must at once arise as to whether it is not his duty forthwith to resign his office, or at any rate to do what he thinks right and await the consequences. Let me go ahead and just caveat what they're saying right now is that pretty much it's up to them to do whatever they want to do. If the town clerk doesn't want to hear what the city members are saying or the council members are saying, they don't have to. They can go with the ratepayers, but they may be removed from office. They may be damn the consequences, but maybe the consequences may be too much. It all just depends on the person. But they're saying like that's how epic it is. You know, if a clerk doesn't want to file something that a judge is saying, they don't have to. And that really mitigates the power of a judge. Little do people understand, you know, if they don't see how something legally is like where they're like, Your Honor, and I've seen people do this where a clerk pretty much browbeat a fucking judge like, yo, you can't do that because you're going to offset what you've already put into motion, and then you'll have to rewrite all these other motions. So don't do that. Allow a continuance, and then if they fuck up, then you issue a warrant. But anyway, I'm just throwing it out there that they're right. It all really just depends. Colonial development. With the early colonists, when the early colonists came to America, they set up forms of local government to which they had been accustomed, and the office of clerk, which was the first to be was, and the office of clerk was one of the first to be established. When the colonists first settled in Plymouth, Massachusetts, they quickly appointed a person to act as recorder. Mm. That person kept all vital records for birth, marriages, and death for the church, as well as various other records of appointments, deeds, meetings, and the election of officers at the annual town meeting. Indeed, in Massachusetts, the town clerk was one of the earliest offices established in colonial towns. The settlers were well aware of the importance of keeping accurate written records of their agreement and actions, including grants of land, regulating governing animals, the collection of taxes, and the expenditure of town funds. The person given the responsibility for recording these orders was also often given other duties, such as sweeping the meeting house and selling the seats, ringing the bell, and paying the bounty for jays and blackbirds whose heads presented him whose heads were presented to him by citizens. By the middle of the 17th By the middle of the 17th century, the title town clerk appears in town records, and this title has continued to the present. One of the earliest statutory duties imposed by the Massachusetts General Court on town clerks was recording births, deaths, and marriages. Since that time, the General Court has formalized by statute many of the duties first delegated by vote of the town and has added others. By 1692, the town clerk was required to enter and record divisions of land and orders of the selectmen, as well as all town votes, orders, and grants. Warrants directed to the constable for the collection of taxes were to be signed by the assessors or the town clerk. Between 1742 and 1756, the general court made the town clerk responsible for maintaining a list showing each inhabitant's property value and for producing it, if necessary, to substantiate a person's voting rights. This is where your race comes into play, obviously, back then. The town, and your gender would have too, but more or less your race. By 1776, the town clerk was empowered to call town meetings to elect select men if the majority of the select men had moved from the town or were absent in service of the country. One moment. One moment. Little thing just jumped ahead of me a little bit. There we go. The office of the town clerk of Weathersfield, Connecticut was established in 1639, and that person was to keep record of every man's house and land and to present a fairly written copy of such to every general court to be recorded by the secretary of the colony. And the first municipal election of, in New York City in 1689, the offices of the sheriff, mayor, and city clerk were on the ballot. The Puritan town of Woodstock, Massachusetts, appointed a town clerk in 1693 to record deeds and mortgages and to record the books. Because town peoples wanted to keep him on a permanent basis, he was given 20 acres of land and a fee of 12 pence for each 12 pence for each town meeting, plus 6 pence for each grant filed. The town clerk for Middleborough, Massachusetts, on the other hand, was compensated with one load of fish taken at the herring wire and delivered to his house. 3 centuries later, one of his 17 great grandchildren is serving as the city recorder of Newport, Oregon. Over the years, municipal clerks have become the hub of the government, the direct link between the inhabitants of their community and their generation. The clerk is the historian of the community for the entire recorded history of the town, city, and its people is in his or her care. The eminent political scientist, Professor William Bennett Monroe, writing in one of his first textbooks on municipal administration in 1934, stated, "No other office in municipal service has so many contracts. It serves the mayor, listen to this, the city council, the city manager, when there is one, and all administrative departments without exception. All of them call upon it almost daily for some service or information. Its work is not spectacular, but it demands versatility, alertness, accuracy, and no end of patience. The public does not realize how many loose ends of the city's administration this office pulls together." These words were written more than 80 years ago, are even more appropriate today. See, there's so many different things about this one little article. We're not going to just jump all the way off into it. But what I wanted to point out about it was that people talk about you need to win the courts and you need to do this. The people who file the information are just as important as you going in and winning the courts, um, if not more important. You understand? I'm reading to you that they're like, look, forget a judge or whatever you think that is, and a prosecutor and a lawyer. Before all that, there's always been a person to play the clerk, always to play that role, to keep records of things. And so when you can be looked at, even though a person today might not see themselves in a very, high end position as a clerk, this is how a lot of people become lawyers, you know, is by becoming a judge's clerk and studying for the what is it called? Oh my goodness, there's a little fucking lawyer test is called. Oh my goodness, I know what it's called too. It's just escaping me right now. Whenever it comes to me, it'll come to me in a little bit. But no, I just can't let it go right now. I don't know why I don't want to let it go. What is it called? Oh my goodness. It's only once a year that they do it anyway. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time thinking of what it's called to become a lawyer. But that test, oh my goodness, which escapes me. I don't know. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time thinking of it. Um, but anyhow, when you test to become a lawyer, a lot of them will become clerks. to do this job. So, before they even get into a position to do that, they learn all these different clerical, not everybody, but people who don't want to go the route of going to school and, and, becoming super duper indebted like that, you know, they'll, they'll defer and they'll become a judge's clerk, you see. And, that does make a big difference as far as how you go about your life. Now, why I'm bringing this all up is because earlier this week or late last week, whatever you want to call it, I did a little joint, and it was really uh, way ahead of its time. 1 second, and what it was called was the Red Flagistan, and I was talking about how it's the enemy without. Now, just real quickly, this was 4 hours ago, right? So this is pretty fresh. And some guy in San Antonio, we're just gonna get right down to reading his name. I mean, let me see if I can get it right. Abdallah Abdal Karim Abdal Laziz. He's 44 years old and he's charged with making a terroristic threat. Okay. The incident was reported on September 6th by two witnesses who knows Abdulaziz. They said he was upset that he had to request permits when other businesses in the area get to do whatever they want. Now, let me go ahead and just stop y'all right there. They've already snatched this dude up. Okay, now he's getting charged with terroristic threats. Um, I don't know if all these white dudes have been getting charged with them, but I already told you guys, what was coming. Facts, and I'm gonna just put this little link right here, right into the joint. Can't nobody really say anything. I think it's a blessing that one moment. How you doing, sister? Give me one moment. Bam. There you go. And you can just check that out yourself later. But what's so important about this article? There's been a few different articles. I'm not going to go and pull every single one of them up that kind of like really prove the point that they're going to come at a whole bunch of different little things for people trying to ruin their lives. Um, um, he probably said something that people have said before, like your freedom of speech or whatever you think that is. That's out the window. You don't even have that anymore. Like if you're gonna say something, you need to say it in context of how you're saying it, and you don't need to, you need to be clear about that. You know, uh, uh, if you're frustrated about something, it's best you state that you're frustrated before you ventilate, and then you're left to deal with the consequences. Like this dude right here, he messed up because he said what he said. You know, there's people who know him who I don't know who the people are. They could be his own children. See, this is why it's so dangerous, right? Red Flagistan is so dangerous because there's no telling who's going to give you up. And I really do believe this is going to be one of the major ways that children give their parents up to death. Uh, it just seems very appropriate. I know it seems maybe like a little bit out there, but sister, the more I look at it, the more I see it, the more I'm like, this is a way that a lot of kids are going to get their parents killed, maybe on accident, maybe on purpose. Um, and the reason why it seems like that is because when you have a contingent of people who've been taught that they can have their way. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between what I was taught as a child and between what people who were born in, let's say, year 2004 were taught as children. You know, um, and it's a scary concept because let's just go ahead and break it down. Like I just read, so you got to go to that first link. You're gonna have to look at that first one. Very very powerful link. It's called the early beginnings of the municipal clerk, and it pretty much breaks down I sent the link to you. I think I did. I'm pretty sure I did. Um, but pretty much it breaks down the beginning of the term the clerk, and it actually, even though they try to go and say it predates the biblical day, the biblical days, where they get it from is the Bible. So it's like, like once again, they're always trying to disrespect the scripture, but yet they need it to verify and vindicate what they're saying. And the bar, that's what it's called. Earlier I was having a brain fart. The bar, when people want to take the bar exam to become a lawyer. Anyway, people watching it later will understand because they'll see me have a moment. But anyhow, the issue is this, sister. You have a clerk who the clerk can choose whether or not to put all this stuff through. Sister, do you hear what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I need you to get that part. A clerk can stymie all the power of a judge. Clerk could be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting that through. Right. And the judge may not know how to properly actually write it up and file it. So, right. How you get to your tenancy, everything matters. There's people who serve as clerks first, become lawyers, right? Some of them go off to go and join other law firms. Some of them stay into the same place and will try to become a judge, right? Some of them become judges later, and these are normally the judges who are able to better direct their clerks as to what language they want to be germane to. Um, Not just that, but these are the type of judges who also won't let a clerk bulldog them. I've seen judges get bullied by clerks because the judges because the judge has changed, the clerk hasn't. The clerk has more knowledge of the case and the situation. So now therefore a judge has to defer to the knowledge of this clerk. I've seen it happen a bunch of different times in my life. So for a person to try to say that it doesn't happen, it's like your next day off, go to the nearest courthouse to you, and as boring as the proceeding may be, watch it and watch how much sway a clerk has to speak to a judge openly. They can correct the judge, they can low-key scold a judge for being wrong, but the real weapon to their position is what the article was speaking on, is that they have the ability to pretty much determine at their own will what they will and what they won't put forth. So when you start to think about something like a red flag law, right? These clerks are full and are in complete lockstep with these courts, these judges. And that's what makes them dangerous. Nothing else makes them dangerous. Not one thing makes them dangerous but that. Nothing. And there's a lot of people who won't ever see it that way until it's too late. Sister, I've I've been saying for a long time how stuff is going to affect people. The trade war has been affecting people this last couple months. All sorts of businesses, all types of people's money, not just in China and countries neighboring, but here in America. Okay, so when people don't understand that on some level, trust and believe, there is a clerk that is putting all of this through in the White House. Word is bond. I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to stress more than anything, is that at the highest level, there's a clerk everywhere. At the lowest level, there's a clerk everywhere. The point and function that they serve is to make all these things happen. So what I'm saying is this: is you could go to Congress right now. You could get 2/3 in the House, another 2/3 in the Senate. Okay, check this out though. Let's say hypothetically, the House and the Senate are going to vote lockstep on a certain issue, right? Bam, boom. So each is holding their own vote, but the clerks in either vicinity choose not to file through or to go through with whatever they're saying. They can legally do, nobody can stop them. All you can do is remove them from their place in office. That's it. Do you understand how powerful that is? Thank you. They are true gatekeepers at the highest level, and people are overseeing it. And I'm trying to really bring it to a base level. A lot of the things you go through, uh, a lot of the so-called shitty policy that people complain about are because of that word right there, those gatekeepers. Because that's what they play. That's the role that they facilitate. You know, um, and it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing because people will overlook it and say, well, it's not that important, but really it actually truly is. If I say, if I say record this because this is how I want it written down, right? You're not my scribe. The scribe is writing down, record this as I say, write it down. But the recorder, can you hear me? Right? Your clerk is listening and is discerning what of what you're saying I'm going to put down. So we can actually distinguish that, for better or for worse, some of the things we've gotten to read about in the scripture were from clerks who were like, I'm going to write down what I think is right, not what somebody else told me. Keep that in mind for these laws that are coming up. There are going to be so many people whose lives are ruined by the flick of the wrist of the clerk or the typing of the fingers. You see what I'm saying? Everything is going to fall apart because this person knows that they need a job. They have to make a living, right? They're going to justify making their living over tearing your life apart. You know, that's just the bottom line. Tearing my life apart is no big deal. But if they don't understand how red flag and stand and the clerk go hand in hand, then they're going to find out the hard way because they're going to want to blame the judge and blame the system. But it's like, no, the clerk serves a whole. They don't even understand that the point and purpose and idea that the clerk serves, right on, is not the one that they are even accustomed to. We've been we've been pretty much beaten to submission as to what this actual true function should look like. It should be serviced so totally differently, but it's not, sister. It's not, and they're never going to change it. Nobody knows, so why say anything? You know, um, in 1934, that's 15 years ago, sister. A man said, "Hey, check this out. The functions that they serve may not be colorful," and I'm paraphrasing, "but they're vital." Wow. So a person can't try to diminish that just 80 years ago, a man thought that what they did was important, right? It might not seem like it's important, but a clerk is the only reason why there's able to be joint agency, you know what I mean? Joint task force type stuff. All these, everything that we're witnessing comes together because of a clerk. I'm not trying to mitigate or take away the responsibility from other individuals, but I'm just trying to show how one job title, one function has been really overlooked for a very long time. And certain people will bring up different positions in the judicial system, but this is one of those occupations that if you really don't actually give it any never mind, it'll go right beyond you. Now, I want to hit up this other little article that I had saved. 1 second, let me hop right into my history. Yeah. And what it's going to be about is MSN. I can't, I don't know why I can't find it. And they're gonna break down, you know, a whole lot of people with this stuff. was that? Must be the headlines. One Yeah, there's so much different stuff going on all over the world, with Iran and China and Russia, that I really don't want to talk about any of that. I just want to let that kind of build its way up. One second. Where is it? I'm looking for this article. It was just saved in my history. It's acting funny, and it's like they want to relocate the homeless, right? And it's about California. I'm not going to worry about it right this moment. But anyway, what they're trying to do is they want to relocate all the homeless on Skid Row to this federal building that they're not really it's in use, but it's not really being used for anything. And they don't. It's in hot the buildings in Hawthorne, California, right? Now, why that's so important, you know, to this whole little situation, because Red Flagistan doesn't have just one battlefront, you see. So eventually, like I said to everybody, they're gonna just start saying that people are a danger to themselves in general and a danger to the general public, whether they have a firearm or not. And before it gets there, I think they're trying to get the most susceptible class of people out of the fray, or take as many of them out of the off the battlefield, if you will. Let's just, if you just want to be frank, you know, a lot of the people that are homeless, even if these guys are older, they're not so old that they couldn't physically aggress you. They're not so weakened that they couldn't attack you. So I know that a lot of what they're saying has to do with these people just being impoverished and homeless and wanting to take them out of the general public eye and trying to restore the reputation of these cities that have been pretty much overtaken with homelessness. But there's a more sinister level when you look at it as, okay, well, a lot of these homeless people are veterans. Okay, um, they've had a series of incidents where homeless people have either been victims or victimizers, in the recent past of people. Uh, so much so to where when they start passing all these different little, there's going to be a certain mental profile that they're able to say, if you do these things, then you can be seen or possibly perceived as a threat to yourself or the greater public. Now, why no one maybe not be talking about this, and they think that if you just act what they think is normal, like what you think is acting normal or what you think is just regular behavior, could be what gets you ultimately broke off by the law. Um, Case in point, maybe not even broke off by the law, but let's just talk about how it can just get you broke off. There's a young brother down there, and I want to say Georgia, right? He's only 40 years old, and he gets killed. He's a police officer serving a warrant on a really dangerous individual. And what I'm trying to tie this into is that the person that he was looking for was a known dangerous felon or whatever, but more so than that was the type of person known to bounce around. And there's going to be I'm telling people, man, they're building the psych profiles right now against the types of characters and individuals they can come after openly, and just kind of, I mean, and if they can round up the homeless people and put them in these facilities, what's to stop them from taking people all over the U.S. and opening these facilities wherever they see fit and shuttling as many people as they think are so-called threats, red flags, right up out of there. See, it doesn't seem viable because it's not happening right in front of people's very eyes, but they're still deporting folks right up out of here. But we have to realize most of the people they were trying to deport were people that had came in here and were still in these facilities. Right. There's a reason why you don't hear about it as much. And it's still bad, but they're sending them back. They're sending them back left and right. And they don't care. And they don't care. But that's going to have drastic effects that you got nothing to worry about here. But believe there's a clerk involved in that too. On every level, there's a clerk. We need to explore this idea and really make sure that it's not lost on us that in order for these things to even get put through, there's a person who acts as, once again, the remembrator, right, for all of the, not just the society, but for all of the different functions that can take place within a society as to how people govern themselves, as to how we govern ourselves. Um, so if, let's say Martin Etta was our recorder, right? He was our clerk, and we were putting stuff through, and we said, Martin, um, bro, we want you to record today on September the 18th, uh, 2019, that, yeah, we want you to record right now today that on September the 18th, 2019, at, well, I'm not going to use, but whatever the time, the proper timing of the day, we would say, okay, Martin, put here on the paper, we decree that, and we'll use the homeless people as an example. We decree that all the homeless from, let's say, uh, Seattle, Washington, or we'll even go further north, all the homeless from Marysville, Washington, as far south as El Paso, Texas, are all to be um, gathered up or to be not forcibly removed, but to be given a mandatory time where they're to come to a certain place in said cities and to be evaluated, blase, 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 blase. If they don't do such, um, then we're vesting powers and the greater authority, being law enforcement or whoever would be in charge at that point, to enforce this, right? To round up all those who resist, you know, or those who are unwilling, however, whatever language you want to use. If Martin puts that through, right? If Martin's like, okay, I'm with that, that's it. There's no changing it. You see what I'm saying? If Martin doesn't put that through, then that's not what happens. And people need to understand that this is what they're seeing today. In order for them to be able to go and get all those homeless people like that, man or woman, somebody's playing the clerk and they're placating all of this. They're putting it all together, and they didn't even realize what damage they're doing. See, this is why it's so dangerous when people act like it's no big deal when teachers want to strike. It's even more dangerous when people act like teachers shouldn't want to strike for the conditions that they're under. However, because folks will overlook things and they have this ability of separate, they'll compare apples to oranges when it absolutely doesn't matter. But when it does matter and you have apples to apples, they'll act like they're not the same because one's a Fiji apple and the other is, uh, um, I don't know, is a, I can't think of a good apple right now. It's a couple of different ones. I just can't think of the name of them. Uh, I don't know, but it's like a fucking like a any kind of green apple. I guess anything that you like, but just think of two different apples that are different that taste good and compare them. Still apples. It's apples to apples now, but one apple may have more snap, more crunch. One the other apple may be juicier, sweeter, whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's but the point is this: the same function and purpose I could get anyone to service and plan is they're all going to do the same thing and not think that they're doing anything epic. But people don't realize how important they really are. Like a teacher is extremely important. That's why it's so demoralizing that so many of these people want to sleep with people's sons and daughters. You know, how do you trust folks like that who have sexual intent for your child that is it's supposed to be a virgin? You know, um, but once again, because a person will downplay the importance of a certain function, I guess people will overlook how important the clerk is. But it's okay though. When they're going to court and they're thinking that the judge screwed me, I'm like, yep, that clerk screwed you just as that clerk that's over there screwed you just as hard, if not harder. Right. Because they have the discretion, they have the ability to practice that sort of discretion. And I'm not beating a dead horse here. I'm really just trying to lay it all out so that way everyone realizes that during this campaign of Red Flagistan, as upset as you can be with with the atmosphere that has caused for this to be set in motion, be more upset with the people who are going to play it all to where we're all victims. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's gonna not be on some level, people will be a victim, you know, because if it's not you, then it's going to be somebody that you know. If it's not somebody that you know, it'll be somebody who they play a role in people's life, and now they're going to be diminished. It's way different. It's way different than people think it is. You know, it's way different than people think it is. What happens when those couples who used to have those domestic disputes that I don't know, they might think are cute or they might think is regular that people regularly go through. And maybe people regularly do go through that. Maybe the people regularly don't, whatever. The point and the problem is this is that once somebody calls the authorities or once somebody makes the point to involve the authorities on the clerical side of everything, once you've been because it's a clerk that books your ass in. You know what I mean? Whether they're a sheriff's deputy or not, they're playing a clerical moment when they start to take all your information. And so it's just like you could be at that moment and they could say that you've committed no crime. Right on? If they have a strong understanding of the law and be like, no, to get this man out of here. He doesn't belong here. Right. For whatever reason, they could be like, I'm not going to book you in on this. So therefore, it doesn't happen until they book you in. Right. It's not even in the system. It's not even part of the record. Right. That's how important a clerical position is. Now, people might be thinking like, man, that's far fetched. No, it's not far fetched. That's real life. Okay. This is how it happens. If they don't appreciate it, they're going to be a victim of it. They are. I'm telling you, I'm living proof right now that I've had more clerks try to do more damage as far as just their overall competency, okay, than those who are competent. And how dangerous it is I've been in the same courtroom and had either the same judge or a different clerk or the same clerk and a different judge. And those things do matter. You see what I'm saying? They do matter. I've been in a courtroom where it was like pretty much because I knew the clerk and I didn't know the judge, and I'm able to deal with the clerk on a more friendlier level than I am with the judge. right? Or it might be vice versa. I don't know the clerk, but I know the judge. And so, as opposed to talking directly to the clerk, I might address the justice in the room because I feel more comfortable. And I know that if I can get the justice kind of on my side to sway it my way, then more than likely they'll push things my way with the clerk because the clerk doesn't. Once again, they don't have to listen to what the judge is telling them. They don't have to. There's no mandatory setting for that. Just like the state does not have to go with the recommendation that's being made by defense, right on, or better yet, by prosecution. The state does not have to defer to anyone. The state can make a ruling that nobody's seen coming for however they interpret the law. Now, the clerk still does not have to file all those things if they don't think that that is right. Just like that. Just like that. But because the clerk is going to do their job and clerks don't fail to do their job because they'll just be fired and replaced with somebody who's going to get in line, who has, once again, if you've got backbone, we just need somebody who doesn't have one. We'll go find somebody who's a spineless coward who just wants to get paid. Right. And is overly ambitious. You know, that's it. Um, the clerk is really underrated position. And now that I've gotten that out the way, I really want to talk about Red Flagistan because I want to talk about how people are really going. People are about to be hit, with the gut punch on that one. That little dude that I read about who got caught up in Texas, he's he's the second dude right now outside of the little Hispanic guy who got caught up. I want to say in Miami. There's two other dudes I just can't think of where they were and what their actual race is, but I know one of them is a fellow with some melanin. And the whole point that I'm making is this right here is that as long as this continues to happen, right? These are ones that are happening out loud. These are ones that they're telling us about. So there's that many more tens or yeah, exactly. The tens of the tens, maybe even closer to hundreds, now that we don't know about. But I'm sure there's been I'm sure collectively there's been hundreds of people red flagged since these shootings have taken place. You know, um, I'm sure a lot of these guys have been some of them have been charged with serious crimes, and to not further exacerbate the narrative of 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 angry white people with guns, they haven't told us about every single one of them. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there are people running around here right now getting caught up every day. Right now, I'm dealing with the court issue, and one of the things that I had to see the last time I was in court really there was three white guys, but there was the one white guy in particular who his situation seemed how it sounded on the outside seemed like, okay, yep, you're a victim of some shit that probably should not, white, black, whatever, should not have happened to you, but it did, and now you're dealing with this shit. Where, where, somebody said, I want to say his ex-wife, who is not even with anymore, tried to say that he's a danger to himself, this, that, and the other, and his sister has come to his aid to speak up for him. But I'm just saying, like, if his sister doesn't speak up for him, right, and he's still under an ERPO, just like me, but his situation is different because uh, he's married to somebody I'm not, or he was married to somebody I wasn't. So there's a different level of immediate danger that they could try to claim that I placed anyone in. My roommate never said that I did anything like that, has never said anything like that about me. I don't think he would say anything like that about me. I've never posed any kind of danger to bro. You see what I'm saying? Like it's just one of those things where you don't have to really do it's you don't have to do anything. It's You can say some wild shit one time, and that's it. Sister, could you imagine when, like that little conversation you told me about, and you said it was you and your, and the trainer you were with, and she was talking to your daughter, and she tried to say how it'd be cute if she had a mixed baby, and you said, pretty much over your dead body. Could you imagine if somebody took that out of context? You know, you know what I mean? Like, and then tried to question your legitimacy as a person behind that. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, there's no telling. And I'm not saying that like a statement that simple would get somebody red flagged. It would be really hard. I don't see the bona fides in it. But could you imagine saying something like that and pretty much people fucking flipping all the way out like, I think she's a danger. I think she's a danger to herself and her daughter and everybody else around her. All of a sudden, Tammy, who, as far as I'm concerned, Miss Bowser, who is, as far as I'm concerned, has never told me about a real physical. I don't think you've told me about a physical confrontation. If you have, I don't remember. It would, you see what I'm saying? Like a person who I can't even think of, I can't remember of them even telling me them being in a physical altercation in their whole life, all of a sudden having their whole life turned upside down. And who knows the permanent ramifications of having an ERPO on you. There's no laws in effect right now that say once you get an ERPO, you can't do this, you can't do that. Once it happens to you, you can't do this, you can't do that. But they're working on that legislation right now. Right. People don't understand what this means. They think this is a fix and a solution, and it's not. And it's going to be another reason, I do believe, for mass incarceration. And if you're not, and if these other people aren't locked up behind something likened to this red flag stuff, because the one thing that I heard from Brother Cerulean Gray, got to call him brother on this one, because I know he was listening to me, for him to have gone and found a freaking article about some senator, I don't know in what state. He tried to listen to me, sister. Listen how deep this is. Dude tried to have a red flag law passed in his state for people. If you're gang affiliated, they can red flag you. Did you hear me? Just having gang affiliation, you can get red flagged. Do you know what that would do all over the nation if something like that passes? And I do believe that something like that will eventually pass in one of these states, in one of these municipalities, and it'll catch wildfire. Sister, I already said though, red flagistan is about to get real on their ass. What happens when somebody pushes that through and it makes it through? Right? What if it's just a general way to address gun violence in general? Really broad way. It would work. It would work. It would work. It would work. It would be so vicious because domestic terrorism, if you, I mean, like it. Do you know how many black people would instantly get snatched up or get sent a notice saying that they have to come to court? You know what I mean? Or get served, right, with an ERPO? It would be it would be crazy. It would be crazy. I'm not worried about all the other races of people, just black people alone. Could you imagine that? Let's just imagine just in the Midwest. Imagine a place like Illinois, not just Chicago, but Illinois in general. Imagine a state like Wisconsin, right? Imagine a state like Michigan. You see what I'm saying? And Indiana. If people understood Missouri, I mean, I could just keep naming all these places, outside of the East Coast, right, that are known for prevalent gang activity, outside of all the places on the West Coast that are known for it, and the pockets that is known and that has been found to be very live in the South. These people would feel totally different, sister. It's gonna come in. They're not gonna escape it. I have a feeling that they could pass a law like that if we get out of this year. I have a feeling that they could pass a law like that before they pass the ID Act of 2020. There's a there's a really good chance, sister, that they could pass an ordinance. Hell, the president could issue an executive order. Who knows? I mean, there's so many different things that could take place that would make people who are otherwise regular folks may have made a couple of bad decisions and they may still be paying for those bad decisions that fast, sister. Think about the gun. You have to really consider the gun violence for a moment. If you make all the little gang dudes, right? If you put them all where you're like, look, everybody who's on this list can be red flagged, right? So let's say you haven't been given an ERPO, but let's say you get caught in a violent crime where you get caught with a firearm. It's going to vindicate their reasoning for wanting to red flag you, right? See, it's super duper. It is super duper dangerous. What's going on right now? People don't think it is, but they don't. Sister, what happened to the fact that I told you that they're still building cases on all of those dudes. Every last one of them, they're building a case on still. As many as they can who aren't. If you're not telling, they're building a case on you out there. If you're not pretty much keeping your nose clean, they're building a case on you out there in gangland. That's the truth. That's a fact. So if these guys don't think that the ATF, the DEA, the marshals, and all these other different federal groups aren't keeping an eye on the situation, what happens when they red flag, I don't know, an entire gang of people? That is thousands of people, an entire another gang of people. And once again, I mean, I don't want to get too imaginative, but if I were to do that, and then I knew that my ID Act of 2020 made it to where you couldn't get on a plane and get the hell up out of there, yeah, I'd do that. I do that. I do that. I mean, I wouldn't do it too much before the ID Act of 2020, but I would kind of have the battle. I would have the atmosphere for the battle already set up. Hmm. It would already be, and they're doing an excellent job. Um, they're doing an excellent job with setting up the atmosphere, sister. They haven't stopped killing one another, and they're not going to stop killing one another. There's a lot of people who are vindicated in why they're killing folks out there. A lot of other people who are not vindicated in why they're killing folks out there. Not saying there's ever a good reason to kill anyone, but some people do have a more bona fide of a reason to go out there and take action as opposed to other individuals. But my whole point is when they end up getting touched up, I don't have to tell them. Their churches are going to turn on them. Right. Churches are going to just turn all the way on them. Can't trust anyone. Sister, you can't trust it. Sister, you cannot trust anyone. I'm so serious. If you don't know them, like if you haven't been dealing with those people, you can't you know, just all of us, because you never know what they'll say about you. You know, you could never know. You could have had a 20-minute conversation on the phone, right? But because nobody records their phone conversations, and I think that's illegal anyway, um, without the other party knowing, um, how you see what I'm saying? Like, how does a person dictate what was said in a conversation? How do I say no? I didn't say that, or yes, I did say that? Like that has to be looked at. That has to be considered. With all things considered, that has to be considered. And I just don't know. I mean, I'm more worried about it than I am scared of anything. But I do worry about the situation because, I mean, it really has changed how you can speak. You really, I mean, I can still say virtually whatever I'd like to say, but now more than ever, I have to really put into context. So, like when I say, like, like I want these people to fall on the sword, like I have to be like extremely clear, like, that they killed my ancestors, murdered them in cold blood, and seek to not uh, uh, seek to not reparate and restitute those actions with an equal or greater action. That's all. So because I have to say that, you know what I mean, means that me saying that, oh, they can all just go fall on the sword. It's not that I say that way less. It's just that now I'll have to stress the context way more than way more than not, to really put it into to a more clear, understood stance that, you know, if they all did fall on the sword, who would be able to stop you from going to go get what's yours anyway? Right. I mean, like, I want you to think about that. Like, you would become the clerk, you would become the judges, all those jobs that they control. If policy was an issue or is an issue, if all the people who are the reason why the policy won't change all just got out the way, then you could change the policy. It would be an overnight process. So once again, black people just need to really appreciate how delicate of a position that we're in and not get too outside of themselves, you know, and not be ridiculous in what they expect to achieve or accomplish. Because it is difficult, I won't lie, it is difficult to think that things are going to change and they don't. And then the more you contend that they don't. So it's like, yeah, it's trying. I admit that it's trying, but we have to be the best people that we can be. Um, I got court next week. Cannot wait. I'm gonna try to do a couple of little things. Really, the Lion of Judah has a lot of my attention. I almost took a little hiatus and watched things play out throughout the world. But while I'm here, real quick, outside of the red flags and all the other nonsense that you need to look for, be careful with this trade war stuff that's going on. It's getting real. Um, the more I hear about China uh, training with foreign militaries such as Iran and Russia, the more my eyebrows raise. Like, yep. The more I hear about China suffering from a weakened economy because of this trade war, right? The more my eyebrows raise. Every time a Chinese person is caught up and indicted, there's going to be more Chinese people who are caught up in this college admission scandal. And what it's done is it's put a real strain on the credibility of seeing them as, truly scholarly people, because you'll cheat to get what you want, you know, and they're like, paying for it's not cheating. It's cheating if that's not how everybody else has to do it. If it only costs money to get into schools, then only rich people will go to college. And poor people I think would be fine with that if that was the case. If that was how the game was set up, because then only rich guys' daughters would be the ones taking advantage of on those campuses. It wouldn't be some poor person's daughter, pregnant by God knows who because she was too drunk last night to remember, You see what I'm saying? Like that kind of pathetic ass bullshit. But anyway, um, there's gonna be a major reckoning, coming to the soil of the United States. And I've been one of the people to really kind of just be like, yeah, stand back and watch it happen. You know, they're they're gonna get involved, sister, in a fight that's not theirs, and they're gonna get their heads taken off. And this is the truth. And I've been trying to tell them, just to maintain the once again, you have to fight for the integrity of your mind because that's what's going to be coming under fire is if you have a sound mind or not. All I can do is encourage them. Oh, in the U.S., I mean, that's what they've always talked about. I mean, I've always spoke on that, but I mean, I don't see it jumping off no time soon here. I lie. It could jump off any day. It could jump off any day in the U.S. But before it jumped off here, I would see it jumping off at another place, and then pretty much all in one coordinated event, everything kind of shifting this way. But it wouldn't. I don't think it would start here because I don't know. It could, but whatever would happen here, you have to realize like in one day, it's all going down. They're getting smashed on. We're out of here. We're going to the wilderness. All that one day out of here. I know people are like, you really believe that? I'm like, yes. It's it's more than true. It seems more and more every day it's gonna happen, and just have to be ready for when it does. You have to have a strong will to realize that they're doing everything to keep that from happening. You know, this is why this is why these devils and these demons are working so hard to present an equality struggle because they don't want the rest of the world to feel like these white people are just all in it for themselves. Because if people looked at it like that, then what would stop? What's stopping the rest of the world from just stomping a mud hole in America's ass right now, sister? Right. It's not the military might of America that's stopping these people. It's the fact that they think that they can twist the arm of America. But if that ever becomes evidently clear that America would rather eat a cyanide pill before they did business, then they're gonna break America to pieces. America's too invested into too many different places to think that the way that it's treated some of its closest allies and some of its closest frenemies is ever going to be accepted. This is why I stress to you what the Americans did to the Chinese all those years ago, which was, you know, get them with the British, I should say, the English people, get them hooked to dope, and essentially the Chinese they've never gotten over it. They've never gotten over that. I can't stress that enough. Um, so America's ability to go and pretty much poke their chest out, those days are coming to a halt. They're coming slowly to a halt. And the more President Trump, the more D. Treasy, aka Birdman, does what he does, then the more resistance they're going to meet. And the more resistance they meet, the easier it's going to be able to see that people really don't understand the gravity of the situation. We're surrounded right now by our enemies. There's a bunch of Chinese in this country. Once again, I'm hard pressed to think that every nation in the world is not here right now. If whatever happened today took place today, it would be appropriate. People need to realize we're getting to the end of the year. We're far out of the middle of the year. So if the flight did come, guess what it would be? In the winter. Come on. So my whole point is like people need to realize what they're hoping and wishing for is not going to be what they're hoping and wishing for when it happens. Are they really ready to go out there and brave the winter and brave the cold? Is that really what they want, sister? Who knows? I can't. I can't say yes or no to that. I can't determine that. This is why I'm always trying to tell everybody, man, you got to be prepared and be ready. And as much as a person might want to say, well, I want the Most High God to protect me, the Messiah, Jesus guy from the New Testimony, the elect one says, you know what I'm saying? Do not tempt the Lord, right? So I'm not going to tempt him by not being ready because the same Jesus guy was like, yo, sell your garments for the sword. And he was speaking to the men when he said that. So my thing is just like I don't encourage anyone to be anywhere where they shouldn't be, you know. If you're somewhere where you're by yourself, you got to have the ability to protect yourself. It's just that it's really just that simple. There's no excuses for not having the ability to protect yourself. There's no reasoning to that because when something happens, you you have to have that at least going in your favor. You know, um, because yeah, it could very well be a war here. It wouldn't. That would be the least surprising of all the things that takes place and goes down in the next. I don't know. I'm gonna say 6 months to 8 years. You know, I'm really kind of dead set on 2027 if things don't pop off this year or coming into April of next year, whatever they want to say. But and I'm just convinced. I mean, and I don't sound silly, but I'm convinced, and I'm ready to show people. I'm ready to show people that this is bigger than what anyone thought it could have been. You know, if they get years out of this stuff, imagine a Red Flagistan campaign 5 years from now. Hell, just 2 years from now, when you can't travel, can't get on planes without a passport, can't do a whole bunch of stuff. Everything changes once you can't readily travel and move around the way that people are. See, you probably you'll be fine because I'm pretty sure you have your passport and all that stuff. You know, um, right now I can't get mine because of my court case. My court case has to be up before then. You see what I'm saying? And then I have to be able to go apply for. There's a bunch of different things that have to go my way, sister. You know, a bunch of different things that have to go my way that I'm like, we'll see what happens. But I'm not. I mean, I'm not dependent on anything. You should. You really should. You should do that as soon as possible. You really should. That's going to be one of the things, sister, that a lot of people don't have. That they're going to be sad that they don't have, and they're going to be like, I needed that, and it's going to be over. It's going to be over. And then what do you say to that, other than the fact that they're out of there, they're gone. You know, they're going to be able to identify because people not born in America aren't going to have that American blue passport. They're going to have whatever color passport their country is. They're trying to. Trump is really trying to turn America back to what it was 100 years ago, an isolationist nation. But pre-World War One. Like just totally, we don't know nobody. You know, but that's not going to work. Chinese control the Panama Canal and all that stuff now. I mean, there's too many different little things I could talk about that just being aware of what's going to happen is going to be way more important. And I'm not completely done yet, but I might decide to close out at any point because I think I've really stressed really, really, really well what I need to say. Um, we're gonna see some people who are on this platform. There's already been a couple that I've heard of, but there's gonna be more of them who are accosted by law enforcement. Their rhetoric, their speech is not conducive to what the powers that be want to hear. No. I'm not saying what I'm saying is conducive to it, but I most definitely know what not to say. And pretty soon, all these guys throwing around these terms like white supremacy are going to get a rude awakening. That's why I don't throw it around the way that they do. They've tried to weaponize the term. We'll see what these guys do when uh, black nationalism or anything like that to the sort is pretty much monitored the same way that they're monitoring people who are red flagged up. So if there's, what I'm saying is they can start red flagging people who are supposed to be, black first type guys. We'll see. We'll see. And we'll see how they feel when they get what they deserve. Because we all act stupid, you know. Everybody acts stupid until they get hit up. And I'm not saying that anybody's stupid in particular, but I'm just saying that it's easy for people to act dumb when they don't think that the consequences are going to be, immediate right then and there. And that is human nature. Not just to see or to gauge your success by what you get away with, but by knowing what boundaries you can press, by knowing what you can get away with. Um, there's going to be a lot of folks who find out the hard way that the things that they've been being allowed to get away with, they will no longer be allowed to get away with. It'll be seen as dangerous, incendiary speech, that could possibly trigger somebody who's right there on the verge or right there on the brink of committing an act of mass violence. Don't worry, their day is coming. Um, but until it gets there, all I can do is tell y'all just to sit back and just kick your feet up and just to wait for it to happen. Continue to sow seed in your endeavors. Continue to increase and multiply in the way that the Most High God will allow you to. And let that be what it is, and be thankful and be grateful. Um, I mean, my complaints are few right now. I have a couple of them, but not going to change anything. It's not going to make anything different. So I might as well just take it and eat it on the chin. But before I roll out though, sister, I just wanted to say to you, court next week is a big deal. I have court again on the 3rd of October. I won't know about court until I go to court on the 24th, figure out what they're doing there. Um, I have to pretty much just keep fighting all this stuff. I have to keep fighting all of it, and I have to fight for once again the integrity of my mind. Um, a lot of people don't realize my case. If they, God forbid, anybody that I know were to get red flagged, but my case could very well be uh, the precedent setter for the entire Ninth Circuit. So I'm not sure exactly how far west of the Mississippi, but I know for a fact California, certain parts of Texas, Oregon, Washington, and Hawaii are all Ninth Circuit. What's up, bro? And so, because they're all Ninth Circuit courts, um, I really do believe that there's a good chance that my case could really affect how all of it's going to work. you know, and for a moment, and that's gonna determine how people get treated. Um, it's not gonna be just it's not gonna be just one thing or two things. Does that make sense? It's not just gonna be, oh well, you did this, and there's no cases that are like or similar to, because mine's is one of a kind, where if they serve a warrant on you because of your ERPO, you're going to be able to use my case as a bona fide precedent. Not only do I not live in the city where the ERPO was pressed to get me against me, but I don't even live in the same county, which is uh, crucial, highly important. Why this is going to be a factor major for people who may be hit with one, because let's say you live in a county where in your county in the state you can open carry, but in the county that you went into in the state you can't, and the state may have a general open carry concept, or it may not. You see what I'm saying? uh, all these things considered, though, a person has to know, or as they change, a person can be affected by them, I should say. The Ninth Circuit is going to make a big. My case is going to make a big splash. It's going to pretty much determine the overall authority that police officers have. You know, at least they serviced this guy in Oregon with the respect of sending the FBI to him. And I want to see exactly what the FBI did that's different from what the Seattle Police Department did and the Tacoma Police Department enacted. So that way I can say, well, look, these guys did it completely, or these guys didn't do it completely based on the federal standards. And that would be the FBI and the Seattle Police. So it all just depends on who I think is sloppy or who I think is more organized. Uh, just based on the way that the individual responded to the situation, it seems that the FBI handled it much better. Um, saying that, uh, it's a very, 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 very difficult thing for people to go for and to not understand what sort of danger that they're in. They don't get to be, we don't get to choose if it's going to be bad or good or not. You see what I'm saying? You don't get to choose if your neighbor is going to act right today, tomorrow, the next day. You don't choose any of that. Only thing you get to decide is how you're going to carry yourself. That's it. And if that's not enough, then you're going to find out the hard way. You know what it looks like from the other side of the fence, or the other side of the spectrum, because once you have an ERPO placed on you, right? I mean, well, people who once again who've gone virtually and have had the ability to not get into trouble, they're going to look at an ERPO and say, well, that's just for people who get in trouble. And that's the danger of people thinking like that, is because they're going to think that it can only happen to a certain kind of person. And it's like, no, it can happen to anyone. People's children are going to deliver them up to death. I do know that, right? This extremist protection order, this red flag law, is going to get a lot of teenage children to get their parents really, really, really messed up really badly. I'm getting ready to roll on out. It's been an hour and a half. Been just jabber on for a second, but I have actually really said a lot of things that do matter. And the most important of this stuff was read early on, was distinguished early on. Um, the clerk was really the actual importance of this, just to explain how everything that we're talking about, even if you get accosted by an ERPO, an ERPO can't get put forth unless a clerk signs off on it, unless a clerk puts all this stuff through. You see what I'm saying? We we must understand that the red flag law, red flagistan will be totally contingent on how cooperative the clerks are, the municipal clerks are, with all the governing bodies. If things stay as they are, which I don't see why they shouldn't, then there's going to be a lot of people getting red flag. The next 6 months to a year, we're going to have thousands of people who are red flagged. Okay. Um, I just don't see why folks can't see like how a child could not handle how children can hand their parents up to death like this. I'm not so much tired as it is the situation. This particular topic has really worn me out because it's like I don't know how else to present the information to people and then really get like we're in for we're in trouble, you know. We're in trouble. And plus my light is off. So, you know, maybe not seem so tired with the light not on or with the light on, but I'm just kicking back. I'm just hanging out. But no, I'm not tired. I'm this situation has me worn out from all the energy that it takes to really actually gather the information, think about it, regurgitate it, and then present it. And because I still don't have the money that I need to have just yet, I can't go and buy into a streaming service. But we'll see what happens tomorrow once I get this little paycheck. If there's a cheap enough streaming service where I can just stream there, and then obviously proxy through YouTube, that'd be cool. I need that because I need the ability to share my screen so that way I can, because I know when I read it to people it's one thing, but when I show them it's another. And I can put the links in here all I want, and I can do that all I want. There's a level of almost it feels it's like it's not worth it, but it's like damn, I'm not sure if I'm even getting through. You know, um, are people really going to understand what this is going to do to their life, sister? Are they really going to understand how important, even though how menial it looks, right? Okay, sure, they're just a municipal clerk, but that municipal clerk can decide whether or not to turn your life upside down. Their decision not to could spur further investigation into your situation as to why you're being accosted in the first place. That further prudence of search of information may yield a finding that is favorable to you. Of course, it could yield one that is not favorable to you, but it could very may well yield something so positive for you that it ends all questions against your character. A clerk can do that. A clerk can put you in a winning position. There have been people to have had cases thrown out on technicalities because of clerks in court. Clerks can't say certain things to you, can't do certain things, aren't supposed to. A clerk may put something on paper that is detrimental to your case that should have never meant to be there. And a clerical um, mistake is not normally reasoning for throwing out a case, but if the mistake is so egregious, most of them don't, sister. This is what I was talking about earlier, where most clerks study under a judge. They're pretty much a judge's underling, so that way they can skip law school and study for the bar. And they do that for so many years, take the bar, become a lawyer. Um, That's normally how it works when they're clerks and they're young clerks. Older clerks may have some sort of a formal law degree, but they may have no desire to move up within the judicial ranks because they're a clerk and they may understand the importance and the power of the position. They may have no desire to leave. You see, they may be like, you know what? I get to correct a judge every day, or I have the ability to possibly correct judges every day. I get to tell police commissioners and 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 freaking school superintendents, no. Yeah. If you want to just take the sister, if you want to just take the bar right now, you could take the bar, but the bar in each state is contingent on obviously regular constitution law, right? And then it's contingent on the state law that your state abides to, and other general laws, which is why knowing what circuit you reside in is like so imperative. Abraham Lincoln didn't go to law school. I'm not sure if he was a clerk, but he was self-educated enough, and he actually he you know what I mean. He was a self-taught lawyer. Um, but that's neither here nor there. There was a bunch of ex-slaves who did stuff like that. Never spent a day in school and became lawyers or became town officials and the likes. However, we really got to look at it like that. You know, a clerk is that important. Exactly. A lot of people go to law school and never pass the bar. End up spending tens of thousands of dollars, never pass the bar, and have to go get a subpar job somewhere, you know, normally working at, a bail's bond place or something like that, or as a paralegal, and they may be very well competent, but just might not perform very well under pressure, which is why the bar doesn't really, to me, it doesn't really edify or substantiate or vindicate any of that, a person's position within law enforcement or the judiciary system. The purpose of law school is to acclimate a person, and man or woman, with the rigors of law and to show them the different courses of law. There's sports law, there's medicine law, there's traffic law, right? You have construction law. You have like general all around law. There's so many different facets and sciences of the law. It's just like the different forms of math or the different forms of all the other sciences, right? That take one's complete and total attention to hone in and perfect it, let alone be a master of it. So this is why law school is proposed, because uh, one may have the aptitude to learn the law, but you may be very strong in a certain faction or a certain field of the law. And if that's the case, that's what you should undertake and study if you can be most helpful in that. But law school may also be used for certain people to do just what Andre was saying, to show some people that they're not built for it. Because a lot of people will go to law school who will never ever pass the bar, but they may get a job in law enforcement. You see what I'm saying? Or somewhere in the judicial system. So the idea that they go is once again is more or less to acclimate themselves and give themselves familiarity with the law. Now, the 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 offside nefarious reasoning is so that way you know how to break the law and not get caught. But that's nefarious. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. But as far as an individual who goes to law school, right? That would be the purpose. Now, A person who's going to go and learn under a judge, the reason why they might skip law school is because they don't have the money. But you have to realize, you being the pet of a judge, depending on who the judge is, and depending on what your patience is, all that dictates if you're going to make it through that system as well. That's right. Of course, different industries have their own governing bodies, but that's why there's different applications of the law. So that way, once again, if you're in this particular field, you go get a lawyer for that type of governing body, like you're saying, so that way you don't have right. Exactly. Like I was just saying, I was just saying that though, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's why they go to the law schools, is because they teach the different laws normally. You normally won't be able to go and do business law unless you're assigned to to a certain part of the courthouse that deals with and pertains specifically with business law, as it may like deal in civil suits or criminal matters. It all just depends on what the circumstance is. But yes, that's the whole purpose of law school, so that way a person can pursue the different avenue of the law. But at the same time, though, one can become a lawyer and then just study that avenue of the law once they become a lawyer who's passed the bar. So it all just depends how you want to go about it. There's no, there's no real way of telling a person how to live their life in that aspect. I would encourage them to do what they know is best for them. Um, but having said that, though, uh, the clerk is still more important than that lawyer. You see what I'm saying? Uh, in ancient times, the person being accused would have been their own lawyer. You would have spoke for yourself. And if there's witnesses to speak on your behalf, then they would have been just that, a witness. Um, so the idea that people became so incompetent or so lawless in their minds that they needed representation to 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 pretty much explain to them that they may have committed an infraction against the civil code of that society, given a certain time, given whatever place and time that is. I mean, I understand that and I hear that, but I'm just like, damn, I mean, if you rape somebody, like this, who needs to tell you that you raped that person? I'm more content on saying that they're playing stupid or that they're crazy, and in either case, we don't owe them a break. You see what I'm saying? I don't owe you a break because you're crazy. You know, you don't deserve a break because you're crazy. That's stupid. You know, I don't deserve a break if I'm calling myself crazy. I don't deserve a break because of that. You see what I'm saying? Um, if you did something wrong, you did something wrong. Um, you can practice, you can practice law, but in certain states, if you're not qualified to be a lawyer, they won't let you practice law, no matter what. You know what I mean? Like out here in Washington, if you haven't, if you don't have the right qualifications, the closest you can get to practicing law is like maybe being like a private investigator who's a consultant on the side. You know what I'm saying? But all of that is state by state. Each state once again has different ways that they apply how they see the Constitution and how they feel that it's been interpreted. Um, but once again, I don't blame anybody for practicing law without a law degree. And in fact, I encourage it. I encourage people just to be knowledgeable of the law in general. But that's not always enough. Some people, I mean, See, that's the thing. A really good lawyer doesn't have to lie. You know, the best lawyers will say nothing before they lie, you know, and before they lie, before they do anything, they'll, if they have to do anything, they'll mislead you. They won't lie to you. But some guys may have made a mint off of being dishonest, whether for the good reasons or for bad reasons. There have been a lot of people to make a lot of money like that, and I'm not knocking dude. I'm just kind of just pointing out one of those things where um, the best lawyers, though, don't have to use nefarious means to get the job done, because the moment you're dishonest, you have to maintain that lie, just like that. And if you forget the lie at any point in time, then people can call you out on it. So it's like it's always best to just not lie. You know, I haven't lied about my situation that I'm going through as of yet. I haven't had to keep. There's been nothing to keep track of. You see what I'm saying? I haven't had to keep track of anything. Um, but for people who like, I'll say like with like Kawhi Leonard, his uncle's not a is not an actual sports agent, but he did what I think a lot of agents would do, and people call the man a shrewd operator, and they call him this and they call him that. But at the end of the day, he did what you would want your agent to do, which is put you in the best position and put all your adversaries in in the most precarious position they can be in. All you can do is commend a person for doing that and clap for him. But yeah, I do believe it's important for every one of us, me, you, Andre, Little Martin, Little Steven, all of them, everybody, to Roger Spice, Mike Woodard, everybody, JP Hope, everybody to know something about the law. It's important. It's crucial that people know something about the law, especially about the law of the land that they live in. I appreciate y'all just because there's no way of knowing what's going to happen going on in the future, but it seems kind of, some of it seems really obvious. And I'm just going to say to two people who I know are very, very, very mild mannered and very conscientious as to how you carry yourselves. If you feel like you're about to have one of those moments, just step off to the side. It's better you do that and you delay your day by 5 or 10 minutes than you change your whole life forever. You see what I'm saying? Um, I expect for everybody that knows me to not get no ERPO, to not even be in a position of getting one. I mean, I would think that by my situation, they would be wise enough to to not let that happen to them. I know both of you have the wisdom to not let that happen to you, but I just have to speak it out of my mouth and just say that because I'm trying to tell y'all, it is easy to find yourself in a position where you're like, you know what, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm tired and I'm fed up. And I'm saying to you right now, if you have the wherewithal in your mind to say, you know what, I'm going to step off for a moment and I'm just going to just chill out. And when I feel like I can handle the situation again, I'm going to go brave the situation. But until then, I'm just going to let it go because it's not worth me being seen as somebody who doesn't have a strong grip on their mental bearing, you know, and then have to defend your mental integrity. I told you guys this over a year ago. I'm fighting when it first happened to me. I have to defend my mental integrity, and I won't ever abandon that position. Um, if anybody I know ever ends up in this kind of position, I'm going to defend their mental constitution to pretty much my dying breath. I would feel better. Certain things you just can't let happen. Certain things you just I would just rather die. In a nutshell, I would just rather die. I would just rather just not go through that because it's baloney. Um, it's a blessing, y'all, to be alive. It's a blessing just to be here. Um, there's going to be a lot of folks who listen, and they're going to think I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, just like always. But there's going to be people who listen, who take this stuff with a grain of salt, and start to realize, hey, some of the things he's saying are just so they're too close for comfort to be ignored anymore. You know, if anybody can look around and say, okay, they're not going to start red flagging people, and in what state? They're going to be red flagging people in every state you can think of. You know, and right now they're trying to think of a way to red flag gang members, right, and so-called white nationalists all in one. But they don't want to do it to where they meet arm. They don't want to do it to where they're met with armed resistance pretty much right off the jump, because that's what would happen. Oh, you're gonna red flag all the Crips, all the Bloods, and everybody from Folk Nation and all the other gangs, and then you're gonna because they already got MS-13 is already on the damn chopping block, and then you're gonna say that all the white nationalist groups, right on, neo Nazis, whatever, you know what I mean, far right conservatives, come on, you gonna put them all in the same bracket? Do you think there's enough police officers, military personnel, all that in general to fight all those millions of people that you would have to red flag? Of course not. So they have to think of a concerted effort and an intelligent way to deliver all of this onto the people without it seeming as if we're trying to victimize you. Because it's coming. It is coming. And when it does come, my hands are up. I feel bad for people, but hell, I've warned them. I've been probably, I'm probably one of the first guys to say the stuff that I'm saying. If not the first one. And oh well, if they didn't hear me, forget them and feed them cornflakes in the morning with no milk. I have time for that. Y'all are going to be in a much better position than everybody else because you guys get to see and look at all this stuff happen as it happens. Sister Bowser, all I can say is that the trade war is not gonna be over anytime soon. So if any of the products that you're getting are coming from overseas, right now while the coals are still hot, the iron's still hot, you either gonna want to try to find you like an alternative source, or just find somebody who's willing to do business. You know what I mean? At a maybe somebody that you used to do business with that you don't want to do business with, but will do it at a more fair price than what you may actually have to do and deal with in the long term. I'm not sure exactly because like you said, you're the one. But if there's anything that you use in your business that takes another function or another entity, you know what I'm saying? And if this trade war has affected anything that you're doing, then yeah, this would be the time to find. I mean, even if it seems like it's somebody who's overseas, if they're an ally to the United States who doesn't have their shit getting tariffed to the moon, where it would be cheaper to get all that stuff, then yeah, that's probably what you're gonna have to do. But if you can get it here, then obviously, of course, get it here. That's right, alternative sources, because they're gonna leave. Well, I mean, they're gonna put people in a position where if they don't get those alternative sources soon enough, sooner than later, they're gonna be out of business. You know, um, guys who are buying stuff from China that's not quality material are going to be forced to buy stuff from Whereas back in the day, things that were made in America were had, like you could be confident that it was going to be pretty good, at a certain stage in American history, not in every stage, but once full blown industrial mass production had arrived, there was a lot of places that produced things that at a very high quality, and I think people may be being forced to go back to shopping more American or just more local than not. Of course, made in China, made in Taiwan or whatever, made in Puerto Rico, made in Pakistan, all that stuff you're still going to see. Made in Vietnam, made in Indonesia, that's all still going to be around. But I really do see a lot of people being almost forced into a corner to buy American. Um, there's going to be a lot of people who are poor, who I'm not going to say are going to get rich, but they're going to start to be able to make some money because industries that are pretty much being shut down that still need servicing. It's going to give people the chance. It's going to give people the opportunity who may have the who may know what and how to do it, and they may have the tools to do it with, and it's going to put them in a better position than other people are in. It's just the way it is. Um, I can't stress people who can cook are going to be in a better position than people who can't cook. Uh, Being able to service a meal that you find palatable is going to be a big deal. That's why restaurants are getting more expensive, and they're normally they're paying more money to cooks who, listen, they couldn't care less if you know how to use a knife like a master chef. Does your food taste good? Because if the food doesn't taste good, then it doesn't matter how good your knife skills are. See what I'm saying? They're looking for quality now because they're going to have to charge more money for the same product. So the product has to have a level of consistency at all times or as much as possible that people don't question the legitimacy of that business or that entity. This whole trade war stuff is really going to force people's hands in ways that folks haven't seen just yet. Don't worry. I started this year talking about the trade war. I ended last year talking about it, and here we are a year later, and it's really just now. I mean, the prices of things have changed, in the stores, electronic goods, home goods, all of it. It's going to continue to change. It's only going to get worse. By the time it gets to the crescendo and gets as bad as it can be, I'm just going to laugh because, you know, as lowly as it may seem, I've still managed to find a way to keep myself employed, you know, regardless of the circumstances and regardless of what I'm going through. So I know that there's only nothing but upside from here. You know, I encourage y'all to think the same way. There's nothing but upside for y'all. You've been going through what you've been going through, and you've been making it. Right. Continue to just be positive and to put your burdens on the Most High God. And we will continue to be there for one another. You know. Oh, washing dishes, but for a lot more money, for like 16 bucks an hour, 15 bucks an hour, and it's just like right across the street. So, I came out, but it's in a really nice restaurant though. It's in a really nice restaurant. Like it's not in no hokey poke restaurant. It's in a really nice place. It's at a German style restaurant. Get a free get a free meal every day. I like if I'd like to, I could take home something to eat. Um, I get a free shot and a free beer per shift. You know, it's cool. You know, I like it. Like I said, tomorrow I'll get my first check, so I need that. Been addressing the situation with the state that's been too many years overdue, getting ahead of that before things get out of hand or get any more out of hand than what they are. Um, yeah, sister, I don't know. I just have to keep being positive, keep working. It's going to take a long time for things to change, you know. That's why I pray every day for the end. Just come on, Father, just go ahead and end it. You know, we don't have to even keep playing this game. But until it's over, I'll do what I have to do, and I'll do what I can to to have whatever they think is an okay life. You know, I'll do my best to live the best life that I can. You know, not getting complacent and not getting too comfortable, but making sure that I am content and I find happiness in being content. Um, yeah, this is going to be a this is the start of good things for me, y'all. You know, I don't not like the job. I like the job. You know, all I have to do is just make it through this year, make it to next year, and make it to late August next year when our lease is up. And once the lease is up in August, I won't I won't be done with the state by then. But I know by then my by next year my ERPO should be way more than done. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm just not even gonna fight it. You know, like they want to keep me under an ERPO, let them. You know, and then I'm gonna do my best to put my money together to get a really good lawyer. You know, because if I can just put together 3 grand for the lawyer, another 2 grand, maybe 1,500 for the private investigator, and just have the specific information that I need hawked after, and have the specific motions that I need filed, you know, and let them know that they've done a yeoman's work and that I'll take it from here because what I need done, I can't have people who are afraid to lose their professional tenure. You know, I need somebody who's just not afraid. And I can't expect for a person to be totally unafraid when their ability to feed themselves may be jeopardized. I think I've been unrealistic with myself on that. I don't think I've been unrealistic. I've just been unrealistic with the environment. Um, so as long as I can just find someone who will file all the motions I need filed, I'll be okay. And then I'll follow up with all of them by myself. Um, it's going to take a little while, but at the longer I allow the ERPO to linger, the more time I'm going to have to put my money together before any kind of motion is filed or any kind of information is sought after, and it's going to put Seattle in a bind because they haven't had to once again when you haven't had to explain yourself, it's easy to act like you won't have to, but the moment that you have to say why you've been doing what you've been doing, it changes it changes how you operate. It really does. um I don't think I really have much else. uh the weekly update, I did want to talk about Iran for a little bit. I did want to talk about China and all that stuff, but I'm like, I'm cool because I think everybody's going to get to see some stuff going on this week that's going to change how they're looking at the entire situation between the two countries or those other 3 countries and here in America, and it's going to give a lot of clarity. You know that I have not been misleading the people. You know, there's a really good chance that Russia, China, and Iran could invade this place and set boots on the ground. You know, it's okay. Just laugh it off, y'all, because that's all you can do. Don't cry about it. Nothing we can do about it. Right on. Just pray that we're out the way come that day. That's it. Pray that the Most High God put this hedge of protection over us, and we're just overlooked. You know, not even thought about. A figment of the imagination, if you will. But I think I'm done. Yeah, I think I'm done. Um, the clerk, we've already covered all that. We covered that extensively. I really do love y'all to death, man. Every day is always an honor to be alive. It's more of an honor when I'm able to sit down and converse with y'all just for a little second and get all these things off my mind, off my chest. This is not going to be the last time we talk about the clerk, though. I'm probably going to bring up that whole axe thing in a whole nother video, but for the time being, just be good. If you can't be good, be careful. Can't be careful, be safe. I'll take it easy, and I will talk to you later.